Welcome to the Gourds and Pomegranates podcast, talking common sense for church communications. Here's Hannah and Joe.
We are back for series 2 of the podcast, so welcome back to Gourds and Pomegranates. We've enjoyed a little bit of a break, but we're excited to be back sharing helpful, down-to-earth tips that can help you with your church communications. And we've been busy practicing what we're preaching. We've been reflecting upon what worked in the first series, the things that we enjoyed, and things that we want to add to as we go forward.
Yeah.
So we're really excited about the new series. We're really excited to have some guests joining us this series, which we'll mention a bit more about later. But as we start this new chapter, we wanted to remind you as to why it's so important to give attention and consideration to your church comms. So today we're asking the question, is it worth the time? So what exactly do we mean by that, Hannah?
Right. Well, I mean, very often I get asked the question, and to be honest, there are, I don't want to say many times, but there are those times where I feel it myself of, is it really worth spending time, effort, and to be honest, actually even money on church comms? And for myself, is it worthwhile, in quotation marks, ministry? But at the end of the day, yes, I do believe it is worthwhile doing. For those starting out or those managing church comms alongside a number of other roles and responsibilities within the church, to be able to think about regularly creating publicity, updating websites, posting to social media, or updating members via email and whatever else needs to be done, it is easy to see how comms can be overwhelming.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah, definitely. And very often it's done by volunteers. So they're managing that around sort of paying jobs and other responsibilities. And so often it can seem that it's not even worth spending much time on at all, essentially doing what is the minimum we can get away with without having to spend much time and effort into it.
Yeah. And we get that, even as those who work full time in communications, we often have these same frustrations, whether it's with churches or with other clients. But there are times when, whichever way you look at it, church comms can be difficult.
Yeah.
But we still think it's important, obviously. Otherwise, we wouldn't be doing the podcast. We wouldn't be devoting our careers or ministries to it. And that's because your digital presence, as well as all the other offline stuff you're doing as well, is a shop window to those looking in. It's a chance to build community, whether that's community within your existing church family, or whether that's outside of the church into your sort of geographical, physical community. And ultimately, that's something that we're seeking to do to fulfill our missional calling as a church, as the Church of Christ. But some of these frustrations we've mentioned can come from things we've covered before. So way back in episode 2, we talked about what a church is getting wrong with communications. And some of the things we mentioned there were a lack of clarity. So what are we trying to achieve with our comms? A lack of mission. Are we treating our comms as a ministry? Are we resourcing it? Are we praying for it? Maybe a lack of sincerity. Are we growing our audience for the right reasons, or are we doing it for personal pride, just for having the most followers that we can, that we can get? Or is it a lack of organization, how we're actually spending and organizing our time? All of these can lead to a lack of confidence, as we're either not sure what we're doing, why we're doing it, or possibly how is the best way to do it. And particularly that organization part, because if we're not organized in how we go about it, church comms can take far too much time.
Yeah.
In which case, it becomes a lot more difficult to justify, and answering the question, is it worth the time, is probably going to be a no. Because if it takes our whole week and we can't fit it around other things which are arguably more important, it's not worth the time.
Yeah, definitely. And that then brings us to something else that we've talked about, the comms plan. In fact, we actually had 2 whole episodes about how to prepare and structure one of these on a step-by-step basis. And they don't need to be big, expansive, sort of thick documents. It can be just a couple of pages, and they really do help. You ask the first question, why are we communicating, whether that is online or print, knowing who you're looking to reach, as well as sort of what are your goals and the wins that you will be looking for, will help you to focus your efforts.
For sure, yeah.
And then thinking realistically about the resources you have to hand and any limits, which will help you to be strategic about how you're using them, knowing which tools to use or where to spend money to save time or just to be more effective. And this also helps with making decisions about what to work towards in the future, whether that's appointing further future budgets or making decisions on whether or not to use a new platform. And then it's thinking that some effort upfront will pay off long term. For example, spending a few hours at the beginning of a month to save time and the sort of emotional creative stress that you can get will help you through the rest of the month. Considering how to work efficiently, whether you're able to build a team, and considering sort of the legacy in your documentation for if the work needs to be passed on to someone else. You know, having these set policies and procedures and a sort of collective understanding, whether that's both within leadership teams, but also actually your congregation and church family know what the comms team are about, really helps an understanding of the roles and responsibilities within the church, actually makes it more convenient and easier to communicate with each other. It just makes it easier for everyone.
Yeah, definitely. So I think if you've not listened to those episodes that are really practical step-by-step about the comms plan, then that's definitely worth going back and doing as a first step if you don't have a comms plan. If you do, and it's just a chance to revise it, then they can be helpful there too. Because ultimately, yes, we think it's worth it. We think it is worth the time and the energy and the stress and frustration to do church comms, because we are actively trying to reach people with the gospel in a way that not only engages with them, but realistically in a way that they'll actually hear, full stop. Dave Adamson spoke at a conference that we were both at recently, and he gave a quote which stuck with me, saying, these days, the front door to the church is in people's pockets.
Yeah.
So the way that we actually make contact with people these days is very often by popping up on their phone or seeing it on social media or a YouTube video, rather than them actually happening to walk through the physical doors of the church. So yes, it's important because we need to reach them this way.
And we obviously have a message that people need to hear, whether they realise it or not. So, you know, again, we'll ask the question, is it worth our time doing comms? Absolutely. We definitely believe that it is worth doing. And it's therefore even more important to think about how we use the time well.
Yeah. So hopefully this first episode back has been a helpful reminder, not only of the importance of church comms, but the need to think carefully about how we do it. So we're going to continue to unpack the day-to-day realities of this over the rest of the series, including some really practical episodes coming soon on scheduling social media content and on considering what is an effective church website. But one of the other things we want to do on Gourds and Pomegranates is, you know, never to claim that we have all the answers. We're certainly not the only resource out there that's talking about church comms. And so we want to shout out some of the other people and resources that are out there to take your comms even further.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, our next episode will feature an amazing guest who has a great wealth of experience with church comms, both talking about it and doing it, as well as curating some of these comms resources. And we can't wait to talk to them. So come back next week to listen to that. And we hope you enjoy the rest of the series and find it helpful.
And as ever, if you have any questions or want to get in touch with us, you can do so by emailing us at hello@gppodcast.uk. Thanks for listening.